With the 2023 Formula One season about to start, I thought I would do a quick rankings of the current full-time drivers, in which is based off of their career history, but heavily on their 2022 performances as well. This is sure to ruffle some feathers, so put on your cranky pants and stay tuned. We have to start with the rookies, in which case we have 3 this season. Starting off, we have Logan Sargent. Now, despite some wins in the feeder series, he didn't exactly get a seat based on merit alone. Being an American that comes with money, signed to a low-budget team with American owners in a season with 3 American races, it is no surprise he made it to Formula One. Typically, this recipe results in a less than impressive performing driver, but we shall see. Oscar Piastri has all the hype coming into his first season, including his share of drama, but he also has a load of pressure on his back. With Lando Norris rising as a superstar, the challenges for Piastri will be grand. It would not be surprising to see him fall short of what the media and fans expect of him. This leaves Nick De Vries, an experienced Formula E champion that had an incredible F1 debut last season as a fill-in driver for Williams. It is likely he has all the talent to beat his teammate in his first season, which always looks good for any driver. Yuki Tsunoda starts the list of the experienced drivers. Last year, Yuki had an exceptional improvement over his 2021 season, but still hasn't done enough to prove that he is anything more than a Tier 1 driver. If he is unable to beat his rookie teammate this year, it may cement him to the bottom of the rankings list. Lance Stroll has unquestionably improved since he joined Formula One in 2017, but this has to be expected as to date he officially has entered 123 Formula One Grand Prix. He has proven himself to be a good driver in wet or mixed weather conditions, which has to be his biggest strength. However, he continues to make some appalling decisions, gets beat by his teammate on a regular basis, and most likely would have been gone from F1 long ago if his dad didn't own the team. His best championship result is 11th in 2020, which was with effectively the previous year's dominating Mercedes. This year will be a huge challenge with Alonso as his teammate, so we'll see how he does. Nico Hülkenberg returns to full-time Formula One after missing the last 3 seasons. He had some impressive drives as a fill-in driver during that time, such as a 3rd-place qualifying result at Silverstone in 2020, beating his teammate Lance Stroll by almost 4/10. Though he cannot deny he has had a very long career in F1, and despite all the hype and promise, he is still without a podium or a season to remember. Perhaps this will finally be his breakout year, but after a 3-year hiatus, that automatically drops him down the list. Zhou Guanyu had a much better rookie season than people give him credit for. In the second half of last season, he was only out-qualified by his teammates 6 rounds to 5. With a year to learn and adapt to F1 behind him, will we start to see what kind of talent he really is. Kevin Magnussen had a storybook return to F1 in 2020. He comfortably beat his teammate Mick Schumacher and deservingly kept his seat with Haas for 2023. A similar story to Hülkenberg, where he is a very good driver, but not a lot to show for it in F1. Not the most consistent driver, but he has had moments of brilliance. The driver duo at Haas will certainly be an interesting one to follow. Valtteri Bottas had a fresh start and big smiles with Alfa Romeo in 2022. A brilliant start saw 7 points finishes in 9 races, but unfortunately, the Bottas we saw at Mercedes seemed to come back, where his performances dropped dramatically as the season went on, scoring points in only 2 more races. The speed is in him, sometimes. Pierre Gasly was the MVP of 2021, carried that team on his back all season long. 2022, however, was a disaster. Whether it was this generation of car or his mental state with the team, whatever, he just didn't perform up to the standards he created for himself. But that isn't to say he isn't capable of doing better, a lot better. Esteban Ocon had one of the toughest teammates there is to have in Fernando Alonso. Ocon may not have suffered from the same bad luck as Alonso did, but we need to give him credit for getting the results that were available, which allowed him to score more points than his legendary teammate. His quiet demeanor perhaps gets him overlooked, though he does have the skills to put in some great performances. But he also has a history of coming together with his teammates, so the battle against Gasly should be very exciting. Alex Albon has had an unusual career in F1, showed huge potential in his rookie year just to be moved up to the big team to drive alongside Verstappen, and that nearly destroyed his career. After getting the boot, we were fortunate to see his return, where he had some brilliant performances with the awful Williams car. With Latifi as a teammate, Albon was able to showcase his talents in a similar way as George Russell, outqualifying his teammate 19 times to 1, as well as much better race performances. In other words, he is either really good, or not nearly as good as he appears. One of Formula One's most popular drivers, Sergio Perez, has an enormous following that believes he is just as good as nearly any of the top drivers in F1. However, the facts just don't support that. Recent years have been his best years, and he is finally getting some results that the believers have always knew he was capable of. Realistically, the performance gap to Verstappen is as big as any other driver. His only win in 2021 came from when Max had a tire blowout and Lewis took himself out. And last year he failed to get second in the championship in a car that his teammate won 15 races. Despite all this, we have to recognize he has proved to be an extremely good wingman, some of the most iconic defensive driving of the past decade. And while he certainly deserves a seat in F1, the great drivers move forward. They don't have to rely on great defense. Red Bull are fortunate to have such a high-quality second driver, as Sergio's performances could be critical to the Constructors' Championship. Carlos Sainz has arguably been grossly underrated his entire career. He has always been within arm's reach of any teammate he's had, and he's had some mega stars to compete with. He can go on some incredible streaks of consistency, banging in the points, which is immensely valuable to any team. But he does make his share of big mistakes from time to time, and when we think of the elite drivers, they all seem to find a next level performance that nobody would think is possible. Carlos doesn't seem to have that next level, which keeps him at a tier 3. George Russell has been labeled as the next phenom in F1. We saw him constantly outqualify his teammate at Williams, sometimes by 1 second a lap, and the legend grew that the slick Brit was unbelievably fast and just needed a car to prove it, which he nearly did in his one-off race with Mercedes in 2020. Yet everyone seemed to ignore that he could not translate his epic qualifying pace into a race result. Crashing himself out of points at Imola behind the safety car, his first points in the Williams came at the same race his teammate beat him, and for some reason he has trouble driving beside another car without crashing into them.
Touch, and George there trying to find the...
And is it Gasly that makes the contact?
Yeah.
Though in his first season with a good car, he did beat his 7-time world champion teammate, and that speaks volumes. Was this a fluke, or will 2023 be the year he proves he is the superstar everyone believes he is? Lewis Hamilton. Yes, Lewis Hamilton gets ranked at the bottom of the Tier 4 list. There is no denying his success. When we look on paper, his stats are almost literally unbelievable. So how is he not at the top of the list? Well, if we consider he got beat by George Russell in 2022 in wins, poles, and points, we already established that Albon's performance at Williams was just as good or better than George Russell's, which puts those drivers at a similar level, and George beat Lewis, so by logic, that puts Hamilton around that level as well. But his 7 championships do mean something, and the truth is, despite not getting the one-off pole or win last season, once he found his groove at the Mercedes W13, he performed better than George, scoring 8 podiums in the last 14 races versus 5 for George. How he performs in 2023 is anybody's guess. One of the brightest personalities and the talent to go with it, Lando Norris continues to improve year after year, impressing everyone more and more on a more frequent basis. When you try to think of things that Norris is lacking on, it is genuinely hard to find something. Ricciardo at one time was considered a Tier 4 elite level driver, and Lando flat out destroyed him. It is possible that he ranks somewhere around Alex Albon, but until he gives us a reason to do otherwise, it is time to put Lando Norris high on the list. The first spot on the podium goes to Fernando Alonso, the most experienced driver in Formula One history, a 2-time world champion, and a legend in anyone's eyes. Fernando may not be as good as he once was, a time when he was the very best in Formula One. He might not be as fast as he was, at least relative to his current peers, but his racecraft and wisdom and ability to get the maximum out of his car each and every race still remains at the very, very top. And he very rarely makes mistakes, which is what made him such a championship threat so many times. As unbelievable as it is, Alonso remains as one of the best drivers in Formula 1. Is he tier 4 or tier 5? Well, you can decide. What isn't so debatable is that when he is on his game, Charles Leclerc is as fast as anyone we've ever seen. For the most part, his speed was never in question. Perhaps the world didn't know just how fast he was until recent years. What we did learn last year was that in a head-to-head battle with equal cars, Charles can battle and beat Max Verstappen in a head-to-head race. And he does it perfectly clean, which isn't something most of the all-time greats can claim. What we saw in Bahrain last year suggests his racing IQ might be on a level by itself. Unfortunately, Leclerc's kryptonite is himself. While his speed and abilities are undeniable, we also can't deny that he makes mistakes, far more than any elite driver should make, and a lot of them are big mistakes. This is something he needs to improve on if he wants to become a world champion, and number 1 on this list. As if it wasn't obvious, Max Verstappen is number 1. There are very, very few drivers that are as fast as Max Verstappen, and nobody reaches that level of speed as easily and consistency as he does. His career is full of questionable tactics that will likely stick to his legacy forever, but as we judge him currently, he is absolutely on a level of his own. Contrary to what many believe, last year's Red Bull was not a dominating car. The Ferrari was the faster car for the first 8 races or so, but the level of perfection from Max and his chemistry with his team allowed him to win a record-breaking 15 races, and there is no reason why we should expect anything less in 2023. During the course of the 2023 season, there will be plenty of moments that could shuffle the rankings around. Do you agree with this list? How do you currently rank the drivers? Leave your rankings and reasons in the comments, and let's look forward to a fantastic season of Formula 1 racing. Thanks for watching.